So, how many players are signed or a hard commit at this time? So, I believe right now there are 17 returning players committed to Iowa State. Currently, there are no transfers committed to Iowa State because they can't technically commit. Um, on Friday we'll see a flood of them. We'll see Friday, Monday, Tuesday next week. We'll see a flood of new players committing transfers. I would guess you'll probably see a few from Washington State, Anthony Polano, and a few of these other ones. Um, as far as commits, though, I'll have to check. I think there's about eight. I think there's like eight-ish commits from Washington State's class of come over, and I don't know if we've seen any like I don't know if we've seen any players committed into this class that have like publicly reaffirmed their commitment. But left in the class that I know that are kind of like the players that we have not heard of as decommitting and or that have not decommitted at this point. I know Jeffrey Roberts is not decommitted. Um, the running back out of Minnesota, whose name is completely escaping me, Caleb Francois. He is not decommitted. Ajabo Lefuye, Daniel Howard, those guys. There's a few of those guys there that have not decommitted. I don't know for sure, like if they're gonna stay, but a lot of the rest of the class is decommitted already. So like if they were gonna, they probably could have already. Um, but who knows as far as that goes. But we did get a few commits in from Washington State, and I am planning on doing kind of a film study, film review on those guys at some point. As far as um, especially once we start getting more names in the portal, I'll probably do a big we'll probably get a little I'll probably get a big um episode put together with doing some film review on some of the major guys in the class. Stormy said, "Do we lose the little running back out of Texas?" You have to remind me who you're talking about. I'm not sure if I remember. Not sure who you're talking about. You could honestly do. Yeah, you might. We might be able to do the film, or at least start a film review next Tuesday. We could look at the committed high school prospects, and then once we have, depending on what we get as far as transfer portal stuff, we might be able to start looking at that stuff next week. As far as the running back out of Texas, you'll have to tell me exactly who you think it is, because like, I mean, if you're talking about on the existing roster, I don't think they had a running back out of Texas. I think it was just Carson Hanson's obviously in the portal, and then Dylan Lee entered the portal, and he's from Arizona. Dylan Lee entered the portal, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Currently still on the team. River Peppers and Abu Sama are both still on the team. We haven't heard anything from them. I haven't really heard anything like about it, like if they're gonna stay or gonna go. I guess I haven't really heard much. Um, I hope both of them stay because I think they're both excellent backs, and I think Abu Sama with a full workload and a good running scheme could be over a 1,500-yard back. Like I think he could be like a 2,000 all-purpose yard back in this offense. Just depending on what else is all going on. So I hope Abu Sama stays. And I hope obviously River Peppers gets healthy and he can have a long and healthy career as well. But then you got the Caleb Francois from Minnesota, who was coached by Tyler Roll. It is worth noting that like these running backs are these running backs were recruited by Tyler Roll originally. So Zamir Hawk, just like a half an hour ago, or well, I guess now an hour ago, Zamir Hawk about an hour ago announced that he's going to be coming back to Iowa State, along with Jace Gilbert and a few other notable, a couple really nice defensive line pieces. There's a few guys we haven't heard from. Like I don't think we've heard from like a Trey Verdon or anything like that. So we'll see what happens there. But sorry, I just got tagged in something real quick. So so we'll see how that all shakes out. Like I said, on Friday when the portal opens, and through the beginning of over the weekend and into the beginning of next week, we're gonna get a lot more. We're gonna get a lot of players committing into Iowa State, and it'll feel a lot better. Granted, you're also probably gonna have to sift through some posts where you're gonna see a whole bunch of guys saying, I'm committed to Penn State. You're probably going to have to wade through those. Maybe you have to mute them, unfollow them, whatever you got to do to do the mental health unfollow if you need to. But Oh, Jaden Jackson. No, Jaden Jackson is in the portal. Yeah, I remember seeing Jaden Jackson is in the portal. So I think right now the two running backs on the team are Abu Sam and River Peppers. I really, really hope they keep both of them. I think that would be, I think if, especially if River can get healthy, that would be an awesome little duo to have back. So we'll see how that all goes. I mean, Achilles injuries take a while, so he may not even be ready to go by the time, you know, he might not even be ready to go by fall camp. But if you have a healthy Abu Sami, you've got a great start on a running back room. So and I hope that he decides to stick around because with Carson Hansen gone, you know, I hope he decides that hey, I can finally be the lead back. I can finally get all the um I hope we can finally get plenty of carries. Um and we'll see about all that. I'm excited about some of the defensive transfers that have entered the portal that seem to have some sort of connection to Iowa State. I did see there was an offensive lineman from Auburn today that entered the portal that could have a connection to the offensive line coach that is coming up. Um, I think um, I think we're going to be in for a lot of good news later this week. It's going to finally feel like the storm is passing and we can finally see some sunlight a little bit. Um, so here's what we're going to do. If anybody's got any more questions, throw them in the chat right now. Um, and we'll answer them for next. I'll answer them for another like 5 minutes or so, and then I got to get ready for my next stream over on CF After Dark. So, Princess, should we be optimistic about the line for the 8th year in a row? This is a fantastic question. The problem is I have no idea because you tell me who's starting on the offensive line. You lost 3 starters. Brandon Black's in the portal, and Trevor Burr's in the portal. Vaea Kakula's in the portal. Cool's in the portal. So my inclination is to say probably not, but we'll see who they get in the portal. And maybe this O-line coach that's coming in is every bit as good as Ryan Clanton. We'll see. In general, what I would tell you, here's my general advice for not just the offensive line, but for next year's team in general, is that do not put too much stock into any one thing, into any one game, or even into wins and losses. Don't put too much stock into any of that for 2026. Would it be great to be competitive, get back to, if you can get to a bowl game next year? I mean, if you get to a bowl game next year, I think that I would call that a fairly massive success, given just how much the roster has been needed to be turned over and just, being in the Big 12 and all that. I think getting to a bowl game 7-5 would be an unbelievable coaching job from Jimmy Rogers. But we are all going to be much happier, much more satisfied, and we're going to enjoy ourselves much more if we go into 2026 and say, okay, instead of saying we need to make a bowl game, we need to do this, we need to do this. The goal for the year is I'm going to take the straight out of the Matt Campbell playbook is we're going to try to be the best football team we can be by the time November and December rolls around. We want to be playing this. You treat this just like you do the 2016 team, where you're overhauling a huge portion of the roster. You got a brand new coaching staff that's just kind of settling into things, getting stuff figured out. You've got a lot of young players, maybe a couple good returning players, but you're replacing a lot of the team. Granted, in 2016 they didn't have to replace a lot of the team like you do now because the transfer rule was what it was back then. But you were also taking over a team that went like 2-10. So it's you weren't taking over like this massively talented roster that was just a little bit off. They went 3-9 for a reason. But by the time you got to November, by the time we got late October and into November, I would say it was playing good football. And you knew that like going into 2027, you've got some momentum that you can follow and try to turn that into something. This is how you should treat 2026 now. You should treat 2026 the way you did 2016. No expectations. We're just looking to see improvement from game 1 to game 6 and game 6 to game 12. And anything beyond that is icing on the cake. You'd like to see them solidify, to the point where we feel all right about a quarterback situation, whether it's Connor Moberly or it's whoever, or if it's Jalen Raynor that comes in or whoever it is. We must beat Iowa. We're going to Kinnick. I feel like it's probably unlikely because Iowa has a lot coming back. Not a quarterback, obviously, but they have a lot coming back. And we have to go to Kinnick. if you're hinging your happiness and the success of next season on whether or not you beat Iowa, I would consider resetting your expectations. Granted, we thought that way going into 2022 and they won, but um, I would not hinge your opinion of the 2026 team on whether or not they beat Iowa, because they're going to have a whole bunch of new players and they're going to be in game 2 or 3 or whatever it is, and they're going to be on the road in Kinnick. So, um, getting David Coffey back would be awesome. Right now he's CB1. So, getting him back would be great, and they'll add some more in the portal and stuff like that too. So, um, and also that I wouldn't replay. Yeah, they're retweeting stuff from their friends. Um, I don't want to get too much into the edit portal stuff, like with what Jeremiah Cooper was saying, or how Ben Bramer's been acting, or I think Dominic Orange tweeted something out about how players have been getting traded. I don't want to get into that because everyone's got different opinions on that, and like it's an emotional topic. So I don't want to get too far into that. But um, okay, everybody, I'm gonna hop off here. I really appreciate the conversation. I didn't really get to like, actually here, I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the coaching staff. So they unveiled the new support staff today. Director of recruiting, all this. These are names that are not going to be ones that you're not going to probably know many of them or any of them, and you probably will not hear from them on a daily basis or a weekly basis or anything like that. You may never see or hear these names again. But they're all a vital part of how this thing works. The thing that the main one that the main thing about this that stands out here though is the head of player performance and culture. Um, and I know that contains like a mental health element to it as well, which is new to this program. Um, Carter says I know of Bailey fall from STSU. There you go. Awesome. And but Chris cracked. Um, he the part of his thing is the mental health and kind of in the sports psychology part of this, which is new to the program. So that's very, very interesting. And how they choose to handle that too. So very encouraging. I was looking at the coaching staff also, and I noticed that they retained Rob Grand, who is the special teams analyst, whatever you want to call it, on the Campbell staff. They brought him back. I think that my guess is that was at least a piece to retaining Kyle Conradi, which is awesome. Keeping Kyle Conradi was massive. I would assume that was a piece of it. I don't know for sure. But what I do know is that it's fantastic to have Kyle back. One thing I do want to figure out that I would be curious to know exactly how this all can be was the whole all the issues that they had with punt return last year and how vulnerable they were to getting pushed into punts and all that stuff. I hope that gets addressed. I don't want to hear it in a post game interview again this season that the opponent scouted that we could be pushed into the ball on punt returns. That sucked, especially after that BYU game. Frey says the entire coaching staff is filled now. I believe so. Let me pull it up. I believe the coaching staff is completely full and kind of finalized now. Let me just pull this up, make sure we've got all of our people here. So I'll pull this up here. So we've got Jesse Bobbitt on DC, Tyler Roll on OC, and notice that neither of them have a position coach, which is interesting. Go down here. I guess maybe they not. Oh, I guess they're not technically on here. On here as of yet. They're probably waiting. I think there's maybe a couple spots that they haven't filled yet. My guess is that they're probably waiting to get all of the spots filled because with Tyler Roll not taking a position, they'll need a running backs or a tight ends coach. They've got a running backs coach. They'll still need a tight ends coach. So then maybe they're missing one or two spots and they're waiting to fill that out before they announce the whole coaching staff. But we do know the offensive and defensive coordinators. We know like Ross Watson's coming over from Toledo to be the defensive backs coach or the safeties coach. So we'll see if they finalize that here. I would imagine they'll try to get that finalized here in the next week or two. And so we can get all that lined out. So we will see, everybody. I said I'm going to hop off here and take a couple minute break before we go over and we start our stream over on CF After Dark. And we will talk about the move over from Wide Right Night Light over to CF After Dark. Talk about all that. Part of it too is I'm going to tell kind of we're going to talk a bit little about kind of how that all came to be. But also definitely encourage, like, if you guys have questions about how this is all going to happen, and that's one of the things too is we're going to talk about um how this is all going to happen, like what kind of stuff you can expect from us, that kind of thing, like what the plan is. Um, we'll talk about all that too. But if you've got plenty of questions, we're going to be answering lots and lots of questions throughout the whole stream. So bring those as well. So we'll see you guys over here about 5-10 minutes over on CF After Dark. So thanks for watching and this episode of Iowa State Cyclones Live here on the Voice of College Football Network. I'm Levi Stevenson. We'll see you guys again next Tuesday, hopefully with lots of good transfer portal news. Have a good week. Have a good new year. Go Cyclones.